Our second presenter is Corinna Hawks. Corinna cannot be here with us today, and she has sent us a video message. Corinna is Professor of Food Policy and Director of the Centre for Food Policy at City University in London. We look forward to her remarks.
Hello everyone, my name is Corinna Hawks. I'm Director of the Centre for Food Policy at City University of London. Thanks very much to Marie for inviting me to present this today. I'm sorry I can't be with you in Washington. So the observations and remarks I'd like to make are around the fact that city authorities are already taking action to improve their urban food systems and to give a kind of a flavour of the type of things that they are doing to do that. And I first got interested in urban food policy a few years ago when I realised that it was an interesting space for innovation. And I did a report for the International Panel of Experts on Sustainable Food Systems, of which I was a member at that time, called What Makes Urban Food Policy Happen? And that kind of opened my eyes to understanding what was going on at this city level. And I wanted to start by going over very briefly the 5 case studies which we featured in this report here, what makes urban food policy happen, because they indicate the diversity in what cities are doing in addressing the aspects of their urban food system. And each city that are involved in these types of urban food policies, urban food strategies, are often focused on different aspects of their food system. And the first case study that we featured was that of Belo Horizonte, and that's a really interesting example because it's a very old one. It's a programme that's been around for 20 years in the city in Brazil, where the mayor said, I want to address food insecurity, and developed a whole range of programmes around that. A much more recent example is Amsterdam, when a deputy mayor said, we're going to get obesity down in this city, and developed a whole range of programmes around that. Nairobi took a different approach, a different emphasis, which was all about urban agriculture, which was actually restricted in the city. People weren't allowed to farm, or they farmed illegally. And the Urban Agriculture Promotion and Regulation Act was designed to help move urban agriculture forward in the city. And that was about food security, but it was also about jobs, it was about youth, and it was about livelihoods. Toronto, another example, the Golden Horseshoe Food and Farming Plan, which was very much about a plan linking the city with its environs, with its surroundings. So it was that kind of that urban-rural linkages. And that was very much about the economic viability of farmers in that neighbourhood and in that region. And then another example was Detroit, another urban agriculture example. But reason for highlighting that was because one of the main issues that was trying to address was around social cohesion. And the right of the African-American population in that city to farm and to empower themselves to take their own action to improve their own city as a community. So different cities are focused on different issues in urban food systems. And in the study that we did, we talked about how these cities made policy change happen. And this is an indicator of the fact that cities are a fruitful ground of where change can happen. And I won't go through these in detail, but it's around identifying, leveraging powers, managing governance issue, involving multiple stakeholders, funding, political commitment, and monitoring. And all of this is spelt out in the report. So the big question then is, what are they actually doing on diet and nutrition? And I went through a huge number of examples and tried to summarise the main areas in which actions are being taken. And these are 4 areas that I came up with. The first area is about urban agriculture. Certainly in low and middle income countries, and examples I've already given in some high income countries too, urban agriculture is the starting point for what city authorities are doing to try and boost food security in their cities. A well-known case is Antananarivo in Madagascar, who's won awards for its micro-vegetable programmes in the low-income neighbourhoods. Tanzania has taken a bit more of a gender-based example and focused on indigenous plants as well. Women is also the focus of what's happened in Dakar in Senegal with micro-gardening on standing tables. In Nairobi, it's more about backyard farms in slums. In Quito in Ecuador, with a participatory urban agriculture programme, it's about allotments. and about selling those products through local markets. Second area is about food access initiatives. And I've given just one city example here, which is Curitiba in Brazil, which has followed the example of Belo Horizonte to really focus on addressing food insecurity through providing cheap, affordable, I should say, fruits and vegetables, nutritious foods through markets and through stores, and a range of different initiatives to create incentives for the provision of cheaper, nutritious foods at points of food retail. So a kind of alternative food system. Education initiatives, I've given a range of examples here. Medellin, Colombia, which has a food security unit, does urban agriculture and so on, but has food education as a complement to those more systems-based initiatives. Tel Aviv, and another example in Israel, focused on summer camps. Santiago in Chile is focused on obesity prevention through gamification. So you can see the wide range of initiatives that have been taken at the city level. And then finally, comprehensive approaches. I've already given the example of Belo Horizonte in Brazil. You can see from the infographic here about the wide number of different types of approaches that they've taken, spanning all the examples I've just given: food and nutrition education, urban agriculture, subsidised food sales and markets, food and nutrition assistance, as well as job and income creation. And Amsterdam, which is also an example I gave a moment ago, have also taken this type of comprehensive approach to their obesity prevention, taking action in all the areas which determine obesity and weight gain. So I'd like to end with a few brief recommendations based on the learnings that I have drawn on to date and learned to date, which is firstly that diet and nutrition are part of kind of inherently part of all of these policies, but they're not explicit. Even food security programs often don't explicitly mention diet and nutrition. So while all of these programs have the potential to influence diet and nutrition, or at least most of them, it's often not an explicit focus. There's an assumption that nutrition will be positively influenced, but not explicit. So there's a real need to bring the nutrition community into these programs. Second is on evaluation. I have given you some great examples of programs there. Could I tell you about what effect they've had? No, I couldn't, because that evaluation hasn't been there. It's quite shocking how little evaluation there has been, and a need for consistent metrics and indicators. And finally, a point about food retail, that this is really an area where diets and nutrition could be influenced to a much greater degree in a positive way than it is now. But we have an inadequate action and inadequate research to really understand that the most effective way of changing what I call food provisioning environments. And we need quantitative measures, but we also need qualitative, people-centred approaches where we're actually engaging with the people who are in cities and using these types of environments, which is the approach that our programme on urban food environments takes here at the Centre for Food Policy. So I look forward to further engagement with IFPRI on this topic, and I wish you the best with your discussions. Thank you.